Hello, and thank you for joining us today. This is Alan Brochstein. I want to take a few minutes to introduce myself and to explain why we're hosting these webinars at New Cannabis Ventures. But first, a quick disclaimer. None of the content within this webinar should be construed as investment advice. New Cannabis Ventures is not an intermediary, broker-dealer, investment advisor, or exchange, and does not provide investment advice or investment advisory services. No securities are being offered in this webinar, and we have no access to non-public information. This webinar is not a place for giving or receiving financial advice, advice concerning investment decisions, tax, or legal advice. Please note as well that Solistech is a client of New Cannabis Ventures. We host a dedicated page on our site that helps visitors learn more about the company, the fact-based, data-driven Investor Dashboard. Investor Dashboards quickly tell the official story and financial status about the company. Now let me just tell you quickly why New Cannabis Ventures is a good venue for discussing companies like Solistech. Many of you probably know me by now, but for those who don't, I began my career in investments in 1986, working with several large institutions along the way, and have been covering the cannabis industry since early 2013. At that time, I was working as an independent research analyst with several different institutional investors, as well as running a couple of research services for individual investors and blogging at Seeking Alpha. I founded 420 Investor in late 2013, and it remains the largest community focused on due diligence for publicly traded cannabis stocks. Joel and I started New Cannabis Ventures almost exactly 2 years ago because we wanted to address a void in the market. While the evolution of the legal cannabis industry is exciting, it has also led to a lot of noise in the media that can make it difficult to research the real companies. At New Cannabis Ventures, we aim to serve as a filter, saving time for our readers trying to stay on top of all of the developments. We publish only business news, trying to spotlight innovative companies and important industry developments. No fake news at New Cannabis Ventures. We work with a select group of companies, both private and public, like Solistech, who are looking to raise their awareness with investors, strategic partners, B2B customers, and the media. You can visit our featured page at newcannabisventures.com to learn more about Solistech and our other clients. I've been following Solistech since before they were even public, back in 2014. The company was already generating significant sales, having been founded in 2010 by Alan Lean, who's on the call today and currently serves as president, and Alvin Howe, who serves as EVP supporting operations. To be perfectly frank, while I follow the company fundamentally, the lack of trading volume was a big problem for the stock despite very strong fundamentals for the company. Fortunately, that's no longer the case as trading volume in 2017 has improved dramatically. Earlier this year, CEO Dennis Forczyk joined the company to help drive its growth further, though he was no stranger to Solistech, having served as a consultant for a year or so prior to joining officially. Dennis has been involved in other early stage growth companies and brings experience and leadership to the management team. Solistech is very well known for its digital lighting controls, and its lighting business was the vast majority of its $8 million plus in sales in 2016. Today we'll hear about not only that core business, but also their nutrients product line, which was launched last year and is getting some great traction in 2017. While I mentioned that the trading volume has picked up this year, Solistech remains, in my view, a still somewhat undiscovered, high-growth ancillary cannabis company. We will now be getting into the presentation. CEO Dennis Forczyk and Alan Lean will be walking us through the Solistech investor deck, and then we'll take questions. At any time during the presentation, you can type a question. There are several attendees today, so there's a good chance we won't be able to get to all the questions. Dennis and Alan will answer as many as they can at the end of the prepared remarks. So now please welcome Solistech CEO Dennis Forczyk and President and co-founder Alan Lean, who will talk to us about the company and its prospects. Hello, Dennis and Alan.
Hello, Alan. Thank you for that background and the introduction. This is Dennis Forczyk, CEO of Solistech, and we're on.
This is Alan, President and co-founder of Solistech. Thank you, Alan.
So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Everyone who, go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
I'm going to hand it off to you guys, and I'll be back for Q&A after you're done.
Thank you. So to everyone who has joined us today and is listening in, we want to start by thanking you for your time. We do appreciate that you have joined us and allowed us this opportunity to introduce you to Solistech. Over the next 20 or so minutes, we'd like to go through the prepared slides. We'll give you our background, our business model, and why we are optimistic about our company currently and looking forward. If you want to follow us more, the stock information, as Alan said, we are a public company. We do trade on the OTCQB exchange. SLTK is our sticker. Company is based in Carson, California, which is right in the Los Angeles area, Southern California, and we currently have 20 employees. Alan did mention we began our company in 2010. I'll come back to that in a little bit as we go forward and give you some insight on the company. And the stock price, the value, the balance of this page is obviously dynamic and changing on a regular basis, with the exception of our fiscal year, which is the calendar year. And as Alan has already mentioned, we did just over $8.5 million of total revenue in 2016. So as we proceed forward, we'll give you a little bit of background on our company itself. And before I do, I just want to take a moment or two just to touch on the industry as a whole. Alan Brochstein, in his introduction, mentioned how exciting this cannabis industry is. I've been a CEO for 30 years in multiple different industries, and I can share I have never seen, experienced, or been involved in anything like the cannabis industry right now. It is beyond exciting, and it brings with it obviously some inherent risks, but a opportunity if you do your due diligence as an investor. And we don't go anywhere without our investors. We're in this together. So we hope that we have the team working with us, both internal as well as in the marketplace, to allow us to take advantage of what we believe are perhaps once in a lifetime, literally once in a lifetime opportunities. So in a minute or two, just to touch on that industry as a whole, as a potential investor or even a current investor, one of the key core strengths we believe benefits of SolisTech is that we are what we consider to be a gateway investment into the cannabis industry. And what we mean by that is the one clear demarcation line at the core of every considered or potential or active investment that an investor should be making or evaluating is, does the company actually physically touch the plant? If the company that you've invested in handles the plant, then it is burdened by the federal government statutes that don't recognize the legal cannabis industry. Whereas if the company does not touch the plant, in effect sells the picks and the axes, or the tools of the trade, as we like to say, technically we're not burdened by the federal government's regulatory issues. We are supplying tools of the trade, picks and the axes. We're supplying to the industry what they need in order to produce and execute and thrive in their space. So with that, we're on the do not touch the plant side of the demarcation line as compared to the touch the plant. And as you enter, or you're currently in, the cannabis investment industry, we believe that's a serious and definite benefit consideration that SolisTech brings to the table. A couple of other quick points. We always look for how to leverage our strengths and how to protect ourselves. And one of the things right now that SolisTech sees, and this is something that we're going to take advantage of as we go forward, there are some extreme barriers to entry in this industry. If you think about an industry that last year, 2016, transacted over $6 billion of total commerce, here we are with an industry doing $6 billion in revenue. Everyone agrees that it's upwards of $25–30 billion in the next 4 to 5 years. And there are no multinational Fortune 500 companies participating in this space, with the exception of Scotts Miracle-Gro, who has recently invested through a subsidiary into the cannabis industry, which we believe that barrier to entry is created because of the federal and state statutory disconnect. What that does, it keeps these big industry players sitting on the sidelines. They're obviously aware and conscious of what's going on, but they can't come in and participate. And it gives companies like us, like SolisTech, a protected runway into the near-term future for us to grow our company from 10 million to 30 million to 50 million to 100 million, wherever we're fortunate enough to take it as we go forward. But our goal is to be as aggressive as possible, fiscally prudent and responsible, but still take advantage of this protected runway. And then when the federal and state statutes do align, which we have extreme confidence they will at some point in the future, we will be in a position to, number one, participate and defend ourselves against the big players, or number two, with a proper corporate flexible structure, be able to listen and entertain ways for these big companies to come into the space through acquisitions or what have you. So that's a key concept to pay attention to as well. If we look at the slide, we have Solus-Tech, and it says that we are an award-winning provider of industry-leading lighting. And that is true. I want to mention that Solus-Tech was created literally in 2010. We're entering our 8th year in business. We are as tenured and gray-haired as any cannabis company in the industry today. There are not many 8, 9-year-old cannabis companies that have been doing above-ground legitimate business and generating revenue, and we've been public now since June of 2015, so we've been public for just over 2 years. But with that tenure in the industry, the network that we have, and the knowledge that we have, not just all the new people coming in, but Alan and Alvin, when they founded this company, have been in this company and have been here longer than any lighting company, and we are extremely well-versed to who runs the industry, the network, the key industry makers, etc. Another note to tell you about Solus-Tech, we are the only lighting company that we know of who was specifically created for the cannabis industry. Alan's going to touch on what was proprietary. We didn't patent it a few years back, but the software that's in our Dallas was created. We entered this industry for the cannabis industry. We are focused on the cannabis industry, and the competitive advantage that we bring from a quality standpoint hopefully comes to light for you guys today in this presentation. As we mentioned, we believe positioned right now. We talked about the industry size and what we believe is happening, and I'll wrap up on this slide mentioning that Alan and his partner founded the company. Like many early stage companies, I have had the luxury of starting 5 companies from inception, a 6th company very early stage. I've watched these companies grow, a couple of them to 9-figure run rates, some successful exits, but the key is knowing the management team and having the ability to go through that growth as an early stage company. And with Alan and myself and the people that we are bringing on, we believe that we are as balanced and experienced as anyone in the industry, and we're always looking to improve, and we're excited about what's ahead. Alan's going to go forward with an industry overview. He'll talk a little bit more detailed about where we are, and this will lead into how our products, services, deliverables, and opportunities fit into this industry overview that we see in front of us. Alan?
Thank you, Dennis. So, in regards to the growth of the opportunity in the cannabis space, I think the growth is unquestionable in the industry, in the cannabis industry, to everyone that has been involved so far. And there's 2 key numbers here that I'd like to bring up is, the total revenue for both the current medical and recreational markets have grown to 32.1% annually in the last few years to $6.7 billion between 2011 to 2016. And the revenue is expected to continue to grow to anywhere from $24 billion to $44 billion. And the continued momentum shows from this past November's election with California, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maine. These states going recreational adult use, and Montana and Florida, these conservative states turning into medical states as well. Going on to the next slide, you'll see 2 charts here that show you economic growth in regards to the U.S. as a whole and Washington as a specific example. However, there's 2 key indicators here that I would like to bring up that is not shown on the slide here, is that Colorado, for the last 12 months straight, they've done $100 million in revenue per month. That's tremendous. Another example is July 1st, and a lot of people still do not know this, Nevada had went recreational. While some are doing standard numbers still, others that are close, for example, close to the Las Vegas Strip, some are doing upwards of $300,000 a day in revenue. That's amazing. On to the next slide. As all the indicators so far that we've talked about has showed continued legalization in the U.S. And I do believe that that's going to continue to prosper. Two key numbers here on this slide is 61% of Americans now are in favor of legalization of cannabis in one form or another, whether it's flower, oils, edibles, etc. And 88% are in favor of medical use. And that came from the CBS News poll recently. And I believe all this came as a result from people getting more and more educated in cannabis and about cannabis in general, whether it's the medicinal side, the negative effects that people that used to think that the cannabis plant had brought to the human body. Now, with more education, I think people understanding the benefits out of this beautiful plant that we're involved with every single day. On to the next slide, it shows the global cannabis trends. Globally, as well as nationally here, the trends are showing more progression towards legalization. Solistech currently derives a significant majority of its revenue still from the U.S. only. However, we do have distributors currently locked in contract that are selling for us in both Canada and Australia, and we are involved in discussions with the Mexican and as well as the South American markets. And one area that we cannot ignore as well is that we just started a relationship with a UK distributor out in Europe that covers several countries for us out there as well. So the European market is a few years behind in regards to legalization and the views as well as, I guess, cultivation and processing practices compared to the U.S. But that is definitely a sleeper market for us where we cannot ignore.
Okay, and as we continue forward now, and thank you, Alan, for the backdrop, I actually wanted to update something that I read yesterday, Alan, and I didn't even share this with you yet. There was a new poll, and I should remember who if I'm going to reference it, but it was a national poll that came out, and for the first time, the respondents were over 90% that favorable reaction and legalization to the medicinal side of the plant, not the THC per se, which is the psychedelic part, but the CBD, which is the medical side. The recipients or the participants in the poll, 91% favored. Our feeling is that when the inertia behind public opinion is as such, and that inertia and that public opinion is in front of the legislative bodies, that perspective of legalization is going to pull the statute and the legislative bodies with it. What's driving it is not so much the recreational side, but the medicinal and medical values. We're extremely confident that the validity of the medical benefits, and as more and more people become aware, as Alan just said, that the legalization is only a matter of time. And to wrap up on this point, we're not at all dismayed by the current administration. We believe that the idea that there's a bit of a delay and that we're not 100% legal right now hugely benefits a company like Solistech. And that was that aforementioned explanation, the barrier to entry. The longer that the public opinion keeps growing, the slower that, not slower, but it's continuously moving from a legislative and statute perspective. There are now 29 states legal nationwide for medicinal, medical, 8 or 9 states, including the District of Columbia for recreational. When that takes a little bit longer, that extends our runway to continue to take advantage of the opportunities and continue to grow. We're going to jump on to the product portfolio, and as we go to the next page, we'll see that Solistech Digital Lighting. I want to take a second right here and explain. You see 3 different aspects to this. Our company, Solistech, and I'll take this opportunity very quickly to explain the structure, the corporate structure of our company. As a potential investor, if you made an investment into our company, what you would be investing in is the Nevada-based C Corp. Our Nevada-based C Corp is a parent company. In effect, it's a holding company, and it owns 2 separate divisions. One of the divisions is our lighting division, also called Solistech Inc. That happens to be the California division. And as Alan Brochstein said in his introduction, a significant portion in 2016 of our revenue comes from that lighting division. We have recently created a second wholly owned subsidiary, also a California-based C Corp, And that one is the Organic Solutions and Grow product division. It is called Zelda Horticulture, and they are both, the digital lighting, Solistech, the Zelda Horticulture Nutrient, are both wholly owned subsidiaries of the parent company, Solistech Inc. With that, we'll go to the next page and we'll start to talk a little bit about our lighting products. I'm going to take a page, two, and then I'm going to ask Alan Lean to wrap up on this portion of the, or this section, I should say. Our lighting products, I mentioned earlier, we've been here 10 years. We came into the market specifically designed for cannabis. The cannabis industry is changing drastically. It is changing as the industry legalizes. The size of the cultivation sites, which used to be 10, 12, 15 lights or smaller, now get out to 1,000+ lights. All of these bring different demands and needs on the cultivators. Because we are as ingrained, because we live this industry as we do, and we've been here as long as we have, our products are tailored to the needs of those cultivators, both software, both the ability to control them, as well as the hydroponic shops that we'll touch on in a little bit. It's important to note, if you've been in this industry for 10 years, it was not possible to make your living selling to commercial growers 10 years ago, 8 years ago, even 5 years ago, because commercial growers were not that predominant. They were illegal. They couldn't go out and buy 5,000 lights because they would have been arrested from the electric bill and so on. We are one of the few companies that has been here as long as we have. We have over 500 active customers throughout the country. We call this our retail division. Our retail customers are the brick and mortar hydroponic storefronts that are in all 50 states. We have grown over 85+% of our revenue last year comes from that retail client base. A small fraction comes from the commercial side, which anybody new coming in the industry today obviously focuses on the commercial side. It's incredibly expensive to go out and acquire those 500 clients in an organic manner. Our software, our balances, all of the products that we're showing you now work just as well for the 1,000 light cultivator who's doing it commercially, or in many states where it's legal to own up to 6 plants or 3 plants or certain parameters, individual small hobbyist enthusiasts use our product as well. Our digital ballast, as we talked about, are software driven. They work specific for the cultivator's needs. On the ballast, this is an interesting part as we enter the second division. We have 3 primary products. We have the ballast and the reflectors. The ballasts are what move the energy into the light. The reflector is the hood that the bulb is positioned in. Ballasts make up the primary portion of our lighting revenue from a percentage standpoint, probably 70+% or so. Life cycle 3 to 5 years, 4 to 5 years, and a gross margin in the 33, 34, low 30% range. The hoods have about the same life cycle, perhaps a little longer, a little bit higher, high 30, 40% gross margin, and those will have the same life cycle. And then as you turn the page, we'll get more into the lighting, which is the third part, some new products and the bulbs. Alan, I'll ask you to take these next couple of slides.
Sure. What I want to really mention about our lighting products is, what makes us unique from the rest of the competition. And first of all, 8 years ago, we were first to market on several different features and functions that are pretty much setting the new standard in regards to today's products that you would see circulating in the market. And just to kind of go down, there's 3 or 4 different unique aspects. So the first thing that we actually came out with is ignition control as well as SenseSmart technology. Ignition control basically was something that we kind of came out with to protect the growers in regards to electric bill. As well as their electrical capacity. Without digging too deep and getting too scientific, all these features and functions, you can find more details on our website as well, or we can save some time in the Q&A to dig deeper. However, in a nutshell, the ignition control is basically staggered ignition. It basically, an offering addresses the problem of electrical load, which is prevalent within the cannabis cultivation community. It's basically something that no matter if it's 2 lights, 5 lights, or 1,000 lights, or even 5,000 lights turning on, none of the lights would be turning on at the same time. So it takes the load off of the circuit breakers as well as the ballast itself. to have a more of like a staggered ignition. It's easier on the electrical bill for some states, and it can maximize the capacity of certain facilities where power is an issue. SenseSmart technology is a closed loop 8-point safety check. Basically, before the light actually fires off, the ballast fires a millivolt of power into the lamp, circulates back, and does a self-diagnostic diagnostic. And if there's anything out of the loop, such as overheating, over voltage, low voltage, etc., it will not fire to prevent any type of catastrophic failure. So we were actually the first company to be able to come up with these type of safety features. In a way, the ignition control is also a safety feature as well to not blow out circuit breakers and such. And the third thing that we kind of have been known for is our education in regards to the different spectrums of lamp. Unlike the traditional companies that came from greenhouses growing vegetables, generally the Dutch model of cultivation, they rely mostly on an orange lamp, which in the industry we call a high pressure sodium lamp. It has orange glow to it because it's known that flowering plants are absorbs more reds out of the spectrum than any other color. So back then, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, scientists had thought, okay, if we just focus on giving our plants all the reds in the spectrum, that's all the plants really need to grow. However, when you look outside in great nature, you don't see green or red outside. The great nature offers 4 different seasons, and I believe bringing the sun indoors is what our job is to be as a lighting company. Is to be able to grow the best, the healthiest, the best quality plants indoors, and by and being able to do that, you have to be able to provide a proper light source. So for Solustech, we have what we call a 2K, 4K, 6K, and 10K lamps. The K stands for Kelvin, and the 2K lamp is basically the HPS orange lamp. The 4K is what we call a transition lamp, more of a white lamp. It's what we call a daylight lamp. It's good for flowering as well, but it has all the blues along with the reds that the HPS has to offer. During the vegetative cycle, a very popular lamp for us is the 6K lamp, which is more of a blue light. It's known to give the plants a better base, better core to work off of during the veg cycle when it's time to try to stack and flower during the bloom phase. And where I want to really spend a little time on is the 10K lamp and give you a little bit more explanation why the 10K lamp is so unique. We were the first to market, or first to mass market at least in regards to this lamp, educating people why this is good for your cannabis plants. In the last 2 weeks, we recommended throwing on this 10K lamp, which we also call a UV stress lamp. Cannabis plants do not like UV. However, at the end of the day, when us, even as humans, when we feel attacked in our bodies, we'll try to defend ourselves by creating other means of antibodies or et cetera. So the cannabis plant, when you see UV rays as a natural reaction to protect its core, it creates its own natural sunblock, and that's called trichomes for the cannabis plant. And for those that aren't aware, trichomes are the portion of the plant that actually produces where the oils are, holds the oils, where the potency, where there's the THC, the cannabinoids, the terpenes, it's all in these trichomes that look like kind of raindrops or I guess mushrooms if you have to get a close up on the cannabis plant. So when you do a UV stress to the cannabis plant, it actually produces more oils and intensifies it. So, in an industry that is looking to produce more medicinal content or THC, this is a great way to help our customers create more value for their gardens.
And Alan, I think it's important to note that we were the first to bring 4 lights to the market. Most of our competitors, all of them, only used 1 light for the entire grow cycle of the cannabis plant. What Alan just described allows our customers to rotate through, and the yield difference at the end of the life of the grow cycle was significant. So that's an important part. Alan, the technology
it just creates a better quality, all around quality for the plant itself. And the next slide basically just addresses that we've won awards in both Dope Magazine, and what's not shown here is that several years ago we were also recognized in High Times as well as being the best lighting company in the industry. I believe that was 2 or 3 years ago.
So I'm going to take thank you, Alan. I'm going to take the nutrient product overview, and I'll be quick with this section. What Alan just described, as mentioned earlier, is 98, 97+% of our revenue up until through 2016. We are incredibly excited about this nutrient product line that we talked about. We beta tested it for the last year with a handful of our commercial clients. The results exceeded not only our expectations, but even what we presented to our commercial clients. It's important to note that as we go forward with this, one of the things that we're doing, and as we continue to grow, we are leveraging, as we introduce this nutrient line, I mentioned earlier that the life cycle of that ballast is 5 to 6 years. So we go out, we have our client acquisition cost realized from a commercial cultivation site. Once the facility is built, one of the most expensive, a third of the money deployed goes into lights. So the relationships that we have with our clients is very, very strong. We're not a Starbucks cup of coffee at 5 cents or a couple of dollars. We have strong relationships. They trust us. But now if the product lives for 5 years, we're not in there reselling the old Gillette razor blade model. I want to continue to put that relationship, put products that work. We're not doing it just because we have the ability to supply products. We want our products to be at or above industry average from a quality and value standpoint. And that's what we're trying to do now. Our goal is to the second half of the year, we've started the launch. We want to continue to push this launch of the nutrient product line. And it's important to note, because the customers are the same customers, both commercial and retail, our sales and distribution channels are already in place. The efficiency of introducing this product that has the ability to go to the same clients, to the same sales and distribution channels, basically no additional cost. And the key is, as a nutrient, it's being used on a daily basis. So you're not waiting 5 years for the next sale. What's happening is our clients are using this and ordering it on a regular basis every day. As you turn the page, you'll see the profiles that we talk about. And the product profiles, we talked earlier about the lighting in that 30 to 40% gross margin range. Nutrients almost double that in some regards. So as we go forward, we have to make sure that we have a product that is unique and that does what it's supposed to do. We're manufacturing and mixing in-house. We've got a proprietary product that we don't want to put outside. 90+% of all nutrients are mixed within the same half dozen or so national mixing or manufacturing sites. And it's important to note we're going to keep this in-house. We're also one other element. Although we use all organic compounds in our product, we are not registered as organic, so we can say that we use organic compounds, but we haven't registered as organic. I just want to touch on that. And if we go to the next page, there's 2 products in particular. One is the terpenes product that we are just now launching. The neutralizer is going through its testing phase. The terpenes product, we had some press releases recently, has no heavy metals in the product. I don't have enough time to get into the details as to what that means, but it will be coming out. We're going to be talking about this more and explaining it as we go forward. I will say that what we're doing is extremely unique. The benefits have exceeded everything that we've expected so far. The California CDFA, which is the regulatory body for nutrients and so on, does not even have a division for our product. They've asked us to call it a nutrient additive. It's that different and unique from anything else on the marketplace. We're in the process of some independent third-party testing, and we'll be announcing what we expect are some very exciting results as we go forward. And we're optimistic that the response is going to continue in the manner that it has to date. We're going to wrap up with our commercial expansion plan. Real quick, Alan, if you want to just touch on that page, and then I'll take the last page or so, and we can start to take questions.
Sure. So Solus Tech, in the last 8 years, we established a really good base of 800 different clients in the brick and mortar wholesale accounts. and 500 which are active buyers, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. However, as the industry progresses, it's important to differentiate retail sales, meaning Solustech selling to the retail brick and mortar shops, compared to the direct commercial accounts that we are starting to get more and more inquiries from. The way that we have to train our staff is different. The way that we have to pitch, as the retailers are more interested in how much more interested in the profit margin that they're able to make by pitching our product and putting our product on their shelves, as opposed to commercial operators and growers that we're in contact with. They want to really understand and be educated on how to use our products, and sometimes even as far as consulting them and teaching them exactly how to lay out our products or lights in their gardens. So that it's obviously a vastly different way that we have to train our staff to be able to cater to the two different markets. And the number three is I want to bring up that we have a really unique, exclusive relationship with our factories and suppliers, and we pride ourselves in R&D and innovation. So we definitely are engaged our suppliers and vendors to make sure that they're under contract and have NDAs in place where anything that we can come up with as our IP that is well protected in their hands. And as legalization continues, we do expect more and more opportunities for Solustech to sell into the market as well. For every single state that goes recreational or goes medical, there's new licenses being handed out, and with every license being handed out, that's just only more opportunity for us to gain more sales and revenue by putting our lights into their gardens.
Right, and that's the concept. As the tide continues to rise, if we continue to execute, we anticipate we're going to have tremendous continued opportunities. Just to run through the last couple of pages, and we'll begin the questions in a minute. The R&D aspect, fueling new products. I do want to touch, Alan Brochstein mentioned that I spent over a year as a consultant with Alan Lean, the founder, prior to joining the company. One of the first and most profound things that I realized when I came on at the time, and this continues to this day, the company when I first joined them had just done over $5 million of revenue their previous fiscal year. And when I looked at two aspects, it told me as much as I needed to know about this company. It was that the R&D budget in a just over $5 million company was almost 10% of gross revenues, just under 10% of gross revenues. Imagine a company spending that much money, $5 million in revenue, yet to be profitable as you're growing and developing and investing in your company. But it shows the testament that these guys, the conviction these guys have to stay ahead of the industry. Their marketing budget was zero. And I couldn't understand how you get to this point with a zero marketing budget. The answer was, well, we attend some trade shows. But there was no formal advertising marketing budget whatsoever other than a couple trade shows throughout the year. What happened to this company was it's in the industry, in the pre-stages, early stages, the product, the network, the branding, the reputation for the value sold itself. As we mature and we start to bring these elements to the forefront, we anticipate huge opportunities for this company. The R&D engine will continue to drive it and go forward. The cannabis industry poised for consolidation. We've touched on this already. We see the barriers to entry. We mentioned the Scotts Miracle-Gro and the Hawthorne Group. That's a validation to the big guys that are going to be coming in. That's on the next slide, Alan. The big companies that will be coming in as we go forward. And I think if we go through the financial summary, I'm going to leave that. It's rather dry. All of our numbers, and we can take questions if you want to be specific, all of our Q and K are on our website through links. It's all obviously public. And so I'm not going to touch on the financial portion of it. And management I touched on as you go toward the back of the presentation. I have joined a year ago. Alan Lean is the reason that I came in here, the commitment that he had with his partner Alvin to the company. And as we continue to bring on additional experienced personnel, I think we're poised very, very strongly. Matt Geschke is our Chief Technology Officer. He's the one creating all of the formulations for our nutrient line and division. And I'll wrap up with this on the management. If you have been investing, you've seen early on a few years ago, a lot of good cannabis companies. If you've gained your cannabis experience and skill set, chances are you did it underground. If you've been doing it for 10, 15 years, you had to be doing it underground. These companies were in the works, in the in the marketplace, but they didn't have good management yet to couple with their cannabis expertise. The business acumen was weak. Now you see people leaving these multi-conglomerate, seven-figure salaries, impressive resumes, world-class companies, and they're joining the cannabis companies, and they have 15 employees. There's another aspect that I would stress. You have to have an entrepreneurial understanding, having a lot of very strong resumes in your company, but if you have a team that has never run a company with 15 or 20 employees doing 10 million in revenue, that's another complement to that management that can be evaluated, and I think we bring that as well. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Alan Brochstein. I know we went a little bit over time. I apologize for that, Alan, but to the extent that we have some time for questions, we'd ask you to take the lead.
No, that was great. Not over time, perfect. And I thank both you and Alan for that presentation. And I had a couple questions. I want to encourage anybody that has any questions among the audience to submit them in writing. We'll get to those momentarily. And you kind of handled my first one, Dennis, and I actually would be interested in the perspective of both you and Alan in terms of, obviously you've had a management change this year. Dennis, you just alluded to what was probably one of the most important changes thus far, which is to focus more on marketing. But just from a high-level perspective, can you just walk through kind of the most important changes that are taking place at Solistech since you've come on board, Dennis?
Well, I'll share this, and I'll preface it with, I spent a few years as a limited partner LP in the private equity world, but I spent the last 10 years as an angel investor. So coupling my experiences in a half a dozen or so companies founded at Inception and the broad exposure for a decade plus of angel investing, I have seen numerous early stage companies that have come out with great ideas, but the ideas aren't what gets you there. It's the execution. It's the ability to take advantage of the ideas. And what we've spent, and the biggest changes, and what we spent the first 6-8 months that I was with Alan, I always say it's as simple as the three little pigs. It's either straw, twig, or brick. And the straw and the twig fell apart and fell over and blew over. You have to build your foundation first. You can't be a $100 million company and come back to build your foundation. At that point, you're not going forward. You're looking behind you and under you trying to fix it. So the biggest changes are bringing on the management team, creating the foundation right now. And that's heavy from an investment standpoint. You have to be willing to commit expenses before you have the revenue. But it's a balancing act. You don't go spend all your money up front. I mean, that's the idea of that entrepreneurial expertise or experience that I mentioned earlier. So the first and most profound is positioning ourselves over the last 8, 10, 12 months. The expenses have been deployed. Now we're in a position to take advantage of what's in front of us. You've got that protected barrier that I talked about giving us that runway. We look at the lighting and the marketing plans. We've got some new products that we've recently introduced that we believe are going to be industry altering, if not industry changing. The complement to the second vertical, which is the nutrient line, in a very, very responsible and expensive way to launch it, to test it, to make sure that when you launch it, you're going forward. When I say expensive, that's that R&D commitment. And then we're poised now through additional verticals, whether they're organic or potential M&A discussions, to be able to go into leveraging the sales and distribution channels. But all of that is premature, Alan, if we're not positioned and poised on the foundation. I think hands down what Alan Ryan and Alvin committed to and what we've done, and we're just now looking to go forward. So that's, I think, without question, has been substantively important to the company.
Got it. And then I guess my next question, obviously your nutrients business isn't organic. It's built with organic components, but puns aside, you built that organically. You didn't acquire it, and you do have a strong balance sheet at this point. I'm just curious how you guys are thinking about M&A opportunities, and I've seen some other companies use their stock very prudently, in my opinion, and I'm just wondering, kinds of what are the types of different product lines you might look to acquire potentially, and how you might go about structuring those transactions, if you can comment.
Well, certainly, and you're spot on. You're right on. So the first thing I'll touch on is you don't go out and do M&A because you want to do M&A. You only access or execute M&A if it's accretive, if it makes sense. And there's a lot of different reasons. I mean, you could get into strategic reasons, as deep as you want. But we need to be positioned first from the standpoint, I mean, if you think about it, if a public company is doing an M&A, there's really three types of ways to structure the deal. It's all cash, it could be your stock, and the seller obviously holding a note. Our feeling is we want a committed, invested seller, somebody who's going to stay on, so we certainly want them to have enough confidence in the transaction to hold the note and a piece of it. We would expect to be cash strong enough to be able to, a portion of it be cash, but you touched on the key part as well. We are just in the process with the foundation strengthening and solidifying to make the formal commitment to the investment world, the IR world, if you will, the investor relations commitment, which, as we do these types of presentations and we introduce ourselves to the marketplace, and if our stock becomes more of a currency perhaps in that M&A, we can use the current stock of the company as part of it. So now you're coupling the acquisition in a perhaps a cash and equity and a seller note, if you will, and that's a more, I believe, prudent way to do it. Alan, one thing you said at the very beginning that I want to reiterate, and we don't worry about our stock price. We run the company, and if we execute and perform properly, then that stuff sort of takes care of itself. We do have an obligation to have a conversation with the investor community. Prior to going public, the company talked to the consumer community. When it went public in 2015, we were the tree that fell, that made a noise that no one heard, because we didn't talk to the investor community. We just started that process in the middle of Q1 of this year. And as we position ourselves now and we come out with that more consistent message, our feeling is there's a lot to learn about Solus-Tech, and it wasn't unintentional not to make that conversation with the investment community. We just wanted to have that foundation properly set, so when it's time to do it, now it's time to execute, and that's where we believe we are today.
And just on the types of product lines, is there any information you can share with us about that? Or
I don't want to be too specific. I will say this: the idea that we are incurring an overhead cost to go out and see our customers with our lighting division. If we add a wholly owned subsidiary that complements that, so that we're leveraging, like we talked about during the presentation, the ability to use the sales, the distribution channels. So what we look at it is, we are from this industry. The salespeople all have backgrounds in the industry. We can talk to the retail and the cultivator customers. But what's really, really important is we know what they do. And we know what they do. With our expertise, we go in. When you put in lights, the lights impact the temperature in the room, which now impacts your HVAC, which impacts your airflow movement, which impacts your moisture and humidity, which impacts the way you water your plants. So we end up making a light sale, and we typically stay on throughout the entire installation, giving input on all of those additional decisions that our clients are making. So if we can find ourselves with the ability, not just because we have the relationship, we have to bring a value, we have to give the customer a reason to potentially consider those other types of purchases from us. So that, without saying, it gives you the sort of premise of what we're looking at and where we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And can investors count on you to stay focused on growers, or might you broaden your focus?
Well, if I understand your question, currently we work with the cultivators, but the predominant aspect of, here's the problem with working on just cultivators. If you're new to the industry today, if anybody listening has attended a trade show, you'll see a dozen new lighting companies at that trade show at the next event, at the next trade show. 99% of them are established lighting companies that sell into other industries, that take 2 or 3 people, create a quote-unquote cannabis division, and they show up with an exhibit, a booth. And they are technically our competitor. But our customers, it literally takes 2 minutes to realize that we are from the space and we know the industry. So with that backdrop, those new customers, competitors, are predominantly talking to the license holders, the guys buying 500 lights, 700 lights. What you can't do today, the way Alan did over the first 7-8 years, is go out and acquire 500 different retail brick-and-mortar hydroponic stores. So we don't ever want to lose those stores, Alan, because if we take care of those relationships, which we don't use distributors. We have a distributor up north in Canada, but everybody else are payrolled employees. That's a belief that I've had for 30 years. I want our employees selling just our products. They know our products. They pay their bills. on our products, right? That's how they pay their mortgage in there. We're all in this together. We don't ever want to lose those retail clients because they order monthly. They're that razor blade to the Gillette razor blade, the ongoing revenue. And then we look at products that they can sell as well as the commercial customers, and that's an important consideration as we go forward. The one thing I do want to say is we don't touch the plant for a very specific reason. It's currently from the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, they are eliminating potential uplisted companies if you touch the plant. They haven't eliminated companies like us, although no one's done it yet. But were we to touch the plant, the ability to consider that in the future would be eliminated. And we want to make sure that that's an option for the companies. The timing is right. So as you ask about new and are we committed to those customers, our predominant customer base are the brick and mortar retailers as well as the commercial cultivation sites with the products that give us the ability to continue to sell on a regular basis.
Okay, sorry. I have one more question, and then we have a few from the audience. And my last question, I get this question from a lot of people, and it's hard for me to derive it from looking at your filings. When you break down your lighting business, and you guys talked about the various pieces of your lighting business, can you classify it in terms of what's proprietary and what's more heavily competitive or commoditized?
Well, I mentioned earlier the proprietary nature or the unique nature that Solistech introduced itself into the consumer marketplace, and Alan touched on the sequential concept of the lighting. It was proprietary at the time. It was the first one to come into the marketplace, but it was pre-revenue when it was created. So the concept of having a seasoned management team who may have been through the concept of prior art and IP, patent protection, etc., wasn't necessarily inherent in the company yet. They hadn't sold, but they were creating something the industry hadn't seen. Is it proprietary? It was when we put it out. The factory that we worked with put it into our competitors, and it's pretty industry standard right now. But had we patented, we'd have been a 9-figure company. I'm confident I can say that because nobody else would have been able to compete with us. The idea that we have patented, protected, is stuff that we're working towards. We don't own any patents currently on our product. We do have elements inherent in our product that because of we have an exclusive relationship with our factory. They're not creating other lights. So we're confident as of now that it's inherent and stays in our product. And those are appreciated tremendously by the cultivators and the growers. So the high level answer to your question is we don't own patents that give us patented protection, but we are taking course as we go forward. And as the company, right now we're focused on growth. We got to make sure we have inventory on the floor, etc. We have some things on the shelf that we don't want to put into the marketplace just yet for prior art reasons, what have you. And we're always doing that as part of our R&D. If we get to the point of patent protection, that'll be in the future. But nothing right now that we can say we own IP on in that regard from a patent perspective lens.
Yeah, and that's probably a little bit narrower of a perspective. I was really just trying to understand the overall lighting business in terms of the things that you're selling, how competitive it is among those, like the digital ballast compared to lights. Like I would imagine specifically the light part's more competitive, but maybe less so on the digital ballast. But I guess as a follow-up to that, so what is it? It sounds to me like it's the relationship that you have with your customers, but why do people want to? They're doing business with Solistech. Why?
Well,
do you mind if I take this? Do you mind if I take this?
Oh, Alan, please. Touch on the lights, though, the bulbs and the unique aspects there.
Well, aside from the unique aspect of what we have brought to market, if there's no patent or there's no IP that we own on it, anybody can come in and copy it, right? China's the master of copying products. But the thing is that, I want to touch upon that Solistech brings to the industry or brings to our customers that differentiate us from our competitors. It's not just the light itself. We do spend a lot of time and money figuring out what is the best configuration, whether it's reflector angle or what type of bulbs to use at what time, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we take very, very much pride, a lot of pride in education, in educating our customers. And it's not just on the light itself. So the value that we bring to our customers, like Dennis had touched on before, is that when they purchase the lights, they start asking us, oh, how do you lay out this room with your lights? And it turns into, okay, how many BTUs or how much heat that your lights output, and then slowly turns into an HVAC conversation. And while most lighting companies would stop there and say, well, that you have to talk to your HVAC company, all of our sales reps are very, very well versed in regards to the different calculations, mathematics of what our products put out and the equivalent of what you would need in regards to equipment to HVAC. And then from there on, it goes to humidity, to the entire environmental climate of your room. So I think a huge part of it is education that we can bring to the table. We don't just stop at lighting. And to add a point to that, what that means to the investors as well is that with understanding of more than just lights, there's a lot of blue sky opportunities for us in the future to be able to start more verticals within our company. For example, getting into HVAC, maybe renewable energy, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of, like I said, blue sky opportunities for us to be able to set up, because of the knowledge that we have, set up different verticals of different categories of business or product lines that we can expand outside of just lighting and nutrients, which we had just started everything in-house with our CTO as the unique formulator. And next is the network that we have, the network of vendors that we have worked shoulder to shoulder with in the last 10 years. Maybe we don't provide those products to them, but we can easily say, okay, well, this is what you need, and here are 2 or 3 vendors that we know of that they have done really good jobs for our other clients. So it's all added value that we can bring to the customers, not just the product itself.
Got it. Thanks for explaining
Alan,
that.
One last part. Alan, let me just touch this very quick. The idea of value means we're not commoditized. We don't want to go in and have to win our relationships on price. We're here to bring the best value, which we hold up against the integrity of our rate card and our transaction pricing. We're not in this to constantly just go out and we can't be the lowest price. We don't want to be. We want to be the best value, and that's education to our clients, and that's what Alan just explained.
Perfect. Thanks for explaining that. And now here's some questions that have come in from our participants, and thank you for these questions. First one is 2 to 3 years out, how much do you think nutrients could be of your revenue in terms of a percentage?
Well, that's one right now, guys, that as we look at from a revenue standpoint, the key indicator there is to have products that provide value that no one else is doing. So with the right R&D and the right processes, if we make the assumption that we're going to continue to do with future products like we believe we have in front of us with the terpenes, it's I don't want to say it's unlimited, but it could be a bigger vertical within a very, very short period of time. If you think of it this way, the idea that the lights have a life cycle of 5 or 6 years, 4 to 5 years, if the nutrients are being part of your daily feed, you're selling it and you're using it on an everyday basis. I can promise you a company committed to R&D is never just going to have one product before they start the next. We'd be irresponsible not to have other products in the pipeline that we're testing and so on. And because of the relationships we have access to very, very efficient and very reputable guys to help, and gives us confidence, and then we go to the independent third-party labs, etc. So our expectation is that what brought us here as lighting becomes a complement to other verticals of the company that parent owns. And I don't want to give a direct percentage, but I can say this, that if in 3 to 5 years everything aligned and GE, Philips, or Siemens came in and said, we'd like to talk about the lighting division, with the corporate flexibility, if we ever wanted to divest of one, I am confident that the balance of the revenue coming in is still enough to sustain Solistech going forward in a very, very meaningful and impactful manner. So we're excited about that.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about NASDAQ and NYSE standards and all that. So the question is, how far is the company away from potential uplisting, and is that actually a goal of the company? Can you comment on that?
It's certainly something that we're aware of. The business model to not touch the plant is indicative of that. It's not just a function of how far we're away from it. We believe that we could do it in an organic, we could position ourselves with all the requirements in an organic manner. We don't believe that we have to go out and go through a bunch of stock structure splits, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing what we have in front of us. Our personal belief is that the company will be strong enough that we'll be there in a very short period of time, but you have to complement that with when the NASDAQ is ready as well. And there have been companies that have made a lot of noise about trying and forcing it, and so on. So we're taking a little bit more strategic approach, but our feeling is that it's something that if we want to consider it, we believe the opportunity for both our side and the exchange side could be in there in the very near future. But that's something yet to be determined in detail.
Okay, the next question. Since you are not a company, since you are a company not touching the plant, do you find it's easier to talk with institutional investors? And I think this is a good question because there aren't that many institutional investors that are really dipping their toe into the publicly traded space yet. But what's your perspective on this?
Well, we have constant dialogue with the institutional. I mean, our job is to always be aware of what's out there and what's happening and what the pulse is on the investment community. There's no question. So the first, I guess the right answer is I can't compare it because I've never had the conversation as a touch the plant company. My perspective is such, and having conversations where one of the first things that we always stress is that we don't touch the plant, and it's a pretty common response. Well, that's why we're speaking to you. So if you're getting into this, the gateway to not touch the plant seems to be universally perceived as a maybe logical first step. And well, I'll just leave it at that. I'm sorry.
Okay. And I have one more question from the audience, and that is, actually I have another one, so two more. Do you currently have any Canadian LP customers, licensed producers?
I can answer that. Currently we do not, but we are in discussions with, I'm not sure if my information is still correct. I've been very, very focused on the U.S. market, but there's the 5 licenses issued in Canada. We are currently engaging in 3 of them.
So there's actually 53 licenses in Canada.
Well, I think the 5 first ones, I believe, and then we're the 5 bigger ones, I guess. Aurora.
Got it. Yeah. There are 5 big ones on the TSX.
Yeah, correct. The 5
correct,
exactly.
Correct.
So
okay,
and it's like here. There's going to be, our feeling is that over time and through, there's not going to be the landscape. The landscape that we see in this industry now, when everything aligns, is going to, we believe, is going to be flushed out a lot, and there'll be mergers, and there'll be that whole landscape dynamic that will continue. So we are focused up there. We are currently in a distributor relationship, and we believe we've got opportunity both in the U.S. and significant opportunity in Canada as well.
Okay, this next question, I'm just going to give a little bit of background before I ask it, and that is, you guys were out in the market, I think in early 2017 with a private placement that you ended up pulling because the stock price was higher. So the question coming up now is there another secondary offering? And if so, can you talk about it?
Well, I'll say this. We did fund to a point that we were comfortable with on that first one that you mentioned, and we did pull back and shut that one and close that one. So we'd be irresponsible as a public company not to have our finger on the pulse. You talked earlier. So as we currently exist, there's no public announcements that we are ready to say that we're raising money, but through the idea that there's additional M&A opportunities out there and the growth that we have, we'd be irresponsible not to be always considering it. So the answer I've always given is we're always in a money-raising mindset, just sometimes more than others, Alan.
Okay, and then just my follow-up to that is just to be real clear with everybody, because a lot of times these capital raises scare people off because companies are issuing toxic converts, and I know you glossed over the financials, but I hope everybody participating kind of appreciates that you guys haven't engaged in that. And do you commit, I assume you do commit to, in the future, raising capital will be through equity. Is that correct?
Well, that would be a logical approach and certainly one of the stronger considerations. We take our responsibility to our balance sheet and our income statement very, very seriously. We spent a year cleaning up the balance sheets. We've got a very, very strong balance sheet, a very, very strong and clean cap table, and that's that foundation that we talked about. If we have opportunities in front of us, we want to be as strong going into that process as you can possibly be. You don't want to be going in to fix things per se. We believe that you get it fixed on your own internal focus and effort, and then when you go to market, at some point when you go, you've got the best story to tell in a responsible, fiscally prudent manner. And that's just, to me, a responsible way to run the company. And that's what our intent is as we go forward. And obviously, if we go through and have opportunities out there, your suggestion would be a logical process to consider and execute upon if all other details are correct and right.
Okay. Well, hey, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I'm going to wrap this up because we've reached our time limit here. And I do want to say, maybe you guys can weigh in. If you want to contact Solistech, there's a few different ways. As I mentioned, they're a client of New Cannabis Ventures, and you can go to the featured page, go to the top when you log in. There's a link that says featured, and you'll see Solistech listed there alphabetically, and you can click on them and fill out a form. That's a very easy way. Here's another way. Just a quick little shout out to KCSA, who's the IR firm for Solistech and has really stepped up in the cannabis industry, and we share similar values, I'm happy to see. And so if you send to these email addresses, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but both of these email addresses will go to KCSA first. Is that correct?
The IR at Solistech will come to us, and the Solistech KCSA at kcsa.com will go to them, and actually we get it as well. So
okay.
Actually, they both go to both. We will both see them as I think
okay,
about it.
got
so
it.
Either of the two are valid options to consider.
And so my understanding is that oftentimes KCSA will take the easy questions, and if they need to pass on, they will. That's
I don't want to say easy. The ones that they're 100% certain with, they'll respond to. But we are copied, and we're in advance of everyone. So if there's anything, if they give 98% of the answer, and there's 2% more to add, we'll certainly follow up with it. But either of those two will get to the same audiences, and we will be in follow-up mode as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. Well, before we close out, is there anything else that you wanted to conclude with or to add?
I just want to thank everyone who's worked through and listened through, whether it's live today or in the future. I believe this will be available if people had to jump off, or if they joined late, or if they want to listen to it again for specific details. We're extremely grateful for everyone's time and interest. And if you have questions, you're free to reach out to us on the IR at Solistech or Solistech KCSA. And we'd love the opportunity to continue dialogues with interested parties. And thank you, Alan, for hosting and giving us this opportunity as well.
Okay, well, great. Well, with that, we'll conclude, and I thank everybody for attending today. And again, to follow Solistech, you can see the email addresses that are provided. You can connect with them through our site, and they're also active on social media and on Facebook and Twitter as well. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll be back with another webinar in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.